March 8, 2014. Calm night over Malaysia.
It was a calm night on March 8, 2014. The lights of Kuala Lumpur shimmered below as Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 prepared for takeoff. The Boeing 737 stood silent for a moment, its engines humming, before roaring into the night sky carrying 239 souls. The passengers were businessmen, families, students, and crew, ordinary people on an ordinary flight bound for Beijing, China. No one on board could ever imagine that in less than an hour, this plane would become the world's greatest aviation mystery. At 12:41 a.m., MH370 lifted off runway 32R, climbing smoothly through the night. The air traffic controllers monitored the radar. Everything looked normal. The captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah, was an experienced pilot with over 18,000 flying hours. His co-pilot, Farik Hamid, was young but capable. Their voices over the radio were calm, confident. The weather was clear, visibility good. The first 40 minutes of flight went exactly as planned. At 1:19 a.m., as the aircraft approached the edge of Malaysian airspace, a controller said, "Good night, Malaysian 370. The captain replied, "Good night, Malaysian 370. It was a routine handover to Vietnamese control, something pilots do every day. But after that moment, the world would never hear from Flight 370 again. Minutes later, the blip representing the Boeing 777 vanished from civilian radar. Controllers tried calling again and again, no response. At first, they assumed there was a simple technical glitch, maybe a transponder failure. But as minutes turned to hours, fear began to grow. The plane was gone. No distress call, no emergency signal, not even a whisper of what went wrong. When dawn broke, search and rescue teams were already in the air, scouring the Gulf of Thailand. Dozens of ships and aircraft joined the hunt. But there was nothing. No debris, no oil slick, no sign of the massive 200-ton jetliner. It was as if the sky had swallowed it whole. The world watched in disbelief. How could a modern jet simply vanish? In an age of satellites and radar, losing an aircraft seemed impossible. Yet MH370 had disappeared completely. Soon, strange data began to emerge. Data that changed everything. Military radar, separate from civilian systems, had actually tracked an unidentified aircraft turning sharply west just minutes after MH370 disappeared from the main radar. It wasn't heading toward Beijing anymore. Instead, it flew back across the Malaysian peninsula, over the Strait of Malacca, and then out into the vast Indian Ocean. Whoever was controlling the plane had deliberately changed course. But why? Was it a hijacking, a technical failure, or something far darker? For weeks, search teams combed the wrong part of the ocean, guided by false leads and confusion. It wasn't until satellite engineers at Inmarsat noticed something unusual: automated handshakes between the missing plane and a communications satellite, continuing for almost 7 hours after takeoff. Those signals showed that MH370 had kept flying long after it should have run out of contact range. The final ping placed it somewhere deep in the southern Indian Ocean, one of the most remote regions on Earth. That discovery shocked investigators. How could a plane that was supposed to land in Beijing end up thousands of miles away over an empty ocean? There were no witnesses, no mayday call, nothing to indicate what happened inside the cockpit. Some experts believed the plane had suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure that disabled communications. Others suggested the pilot might have deliberately diverted the aircraft for reasons no one could explain. Days turned into weeks. Families of the passengers gathered at airports, holding pictures of loved ones, begging for answers. Mothers cried. Children clutched their fathers' photos. "Please find them," they pleaded. But there was only silence. Then, months later, a small breakthrough. In July 2015, more than a year after the disappearance, a piece of an airplane wing washed ashore on the island of Réunion near Madagascar. It was confirmed to be part of MH370's right wing, called a flaperon. Finally, some physical evidence. But that single fragment raised even more questions than it answered. If the plane crashed in the southern Indian Ocean, why was debris found thousands of miles away? Experts reconstructed possible flight paths using satellite data. They simulated fuel burn, altitude changes, and autopilot routes. Most paths ended in one lonely stretch of sea, far southwest of Australia. The governments of Malaysia, China, and Australia launched one of the largest underwater searches in history, covering 120,000 square kilometers. For nearly 3 years, sophisticated sonar vehicles scanned the seafloor. The cost exceeded hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet not a single trace of the main wreckage was found. The world was left with only theories. Some said the captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah, had planned everything. They pointed to a flight simulator found in his home, containing a route similar to the final known path of MH370. Investigators examined his mental health, his personal life, and his final days. But no conclusive evidence ever proved that he intended to crash the plane. Others believed the aircraft had been hijacked, perhaps by someone on board or remotely. Some suggested that cargo on the flight may have included sensitive materials or even stolen technology. Conspiracy theorists claimed the U.S. military shot it down near Diego Garcia, or that it landed secretly somewhere in Central Asia. Each idea sounded dramatic, but none could be proven. Meanwhile, scientists kept analyzing the satellite handshake data. According to Inmarsat, the plane had flown steadily southward for 6 hours before finally plunging into the Indian Ocean. The gradual descent indicated that the plane may have run out of fuel and glided down automatically. But again, no wreckage was ever found to confirm that. For the families, the pain only grew deeper. Every news report was a new wound. Some refused to believe their loved ones were dead. Others accepted it but demanded truth. If they crashed, one father said, show us the plane. But there was no plane to show. By 2018, the official search ended. Governments declared that the wreckage was most likely at the bottom of the Indian Ocean. Yet without the black boxes, the cause of the disappearance remains unknown. The ocean still holds its secret, and still the questions remain. Why did the transponder go off exactly when the plane was handed over to Vietnam? Why did it turn back across Malaysia without any communication? Who programmed that new route into the flight computer? And how could a modern airliner stay hidden from satellites and radar for 7 hours? Some pilots believe it was a slow decompression. Maybe the cabin lost oxygen and everyone fell unconscious while the plane kept flying on autopilot until fuel ran out. Others reject that idea, pointing out that the turns made early in the flight required human control. Even the final satellite signal, the so-called handshake, is still debated. Did it come from the main system or an emergency power backup? Each possibility changes how long the plane might have remained in the air. Years later, more debris was discovered. Small fragments on beaches in Mozambique, Tanzania, and Mauritius. All linked to MH370. They confirmed that the plane had indeed ended in the Indian Ocean, but the exact crash site remains a mystery. The black boxes, designed to survive intense impact, never transmitted any location beacon. Their batteries should have lasted 30 days. They never did. The disappearance of MH370 became more than just an aviation mystery. It became a symbol of how fragile human knowledge can be, even in an age of advanced technology. Satellites can photograph distant galaxies, yet we lost a plane full of people on our own planet and still don't know where it went. Television documentaries, podcasts, and investigations tried to piece together the truth, but every explanation has gaps. Maybe it was a deliberate act, maybe a tragic mechanical failure, or maybe something that still defies understanding. For the families, the pain continues. In Kuala Lumpur, a memorial wall carries the faces of all 239 passengers and crew. Every year on March 8th, families gather, light candles, and whisper prayers. Some still believe their loved ones are alive somewhere. Others stand silently, eyes closed, facing the sea. The mystery of Flight 370 has changed aviation forever. New regulations now require aircraft to report their position every 15 minutes via satellite. Airlines have updated communication systems, so a disappearance like MH370 can never happen again. But for those who lost someone on that flight, the updates come too late. There's a haunting image that remains, a radar screen, a blip fading into darkness, and a simple voice saying, "Good night." Malaysian 3-7-0. That was the last time anyone heard from them. After that, silence. Just endless ocean beneath a moonlit sky. Even today, experts occasionally revisit the case. Ocean Infinity, a private company, offered to restart the search on a no-find, no-fee basis. They used advanced underwater drones capable of mapping vast areas faster than ever before. Yet despite all that technology, the sea remains quiet. The coordinates lead nowhere. For millions around the world, MH370 isn't just an accident.
It's a ghost story.
A plane that simply vanished. A modern-day Bermuda Triangle. But behind the mystery are real lives, people who laughed, dreamed, and planned for tomorrow. In one moment they were gone, leaving behind only questions and grief. The disappearance also changed how people think about air travel. Every time a passenger boards a plane, a small thought lingers. Could something like MH370 happen again? Pilots, engineers, and experts have since improved systems to prevent total communication loss. But the fact that we still don't know what happened makes MH370 one of the most haunting tragedies in modern history. Sometimes, late at night when families look at the sky, they imagine the plane still flying somewhere, its lights faint against the stars, its passengers asleep, drifting endlessly over the dark ocean. It's an image both heartbreaking and beautiful. As one investigator said, "The sea is wide, the truth is deeper. Maybe one day the wreckage will be found. Maybe one day we'll know what really happened that night." Until then, the mystery of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 remains unsolved. They're people. One flight, a world full of questions, and a single haunting sentence that echoes through aviation history. Good night, Malaysian 370.